So on yesterday's show, we talked about how Matt Taibbi was speaking before Congress. Representative Thomas Massie and a few other individuals, part of a House committee, were asking about online censorship and the dangers it poses to all of us here in independent media, and more so for all of you, the public. But also something else was brought to our attention, and that was USAID, how it helped fund an organization that fabricated evidence that was used to impeach Donald Trump. Now, we here at Harlan's Media made it very clear that we felt that the two impeachments that were taking place under the Trump's first term were a waste of time and resources. And if Congress really wanted to impeach Trump, they'd come at him harder with more evidence. But then again, that would also put a lot of those fantastic House representatives and U.S. senators on the chopping block, because they'd be going after Trump for charges that they have done too. Hypocrisy at its finest. But what does this mean? It means that right now, when we look at our fantastic government, we're realizing that the people, the voice of the people, the votes of the people, never really mattered in the first place. I know for many of you, it's like, yes, we know this. But not a lot of us in our modern day society, all of us minding our own business, are fully aware of the damages that's being done under our own noses. And say what you will about Trump, but the fact that there's an organization that's willing to fabricate evidence, what else are they willing to do? So I want to pull up this video here. And again, I'm glad that we're seeing these conversations take place. I would love to see, the quote unquote progressive Democrats talk about this too, but they can't because they're on Trump derangement syndrome right now, and their party is sinking.
Mr. Schellenberger, can you explain how you traced USAID funding that served as the basis for whistleblower report in 2019, which led to the impeachment of President Trump?
Sure. Well, you may remember that the so-called whistleblowers in the White House was actually a CIA analyst. And in that whistleblower's complaint, which led to the impeachment, one of the central pieces of evidence was created by a USAID funded and controlled organization called the OCCRP. And we have another piece out today about how it participated in the Russiagate hoax as well, creating essentially very important information leading to that. So, I mean, you have in USAID a much larger fund of money and a much broader strategy for information control that included censorship, but also, as I mentioned, taking control of investigative journalism really worldwide. I mean, its ambitions were, amazing. So, yeah, I mean, that's an agency. When we saw that get shut down by DOJ, I thought that was completely appropriate. If there's something in there that it was doing that's valuable, then you could refund it later. But my view, same thing with CISA, death penalty for organizations that participated in violations of the First Amendment.
So see, if you were to talk about this or say that was wrong, the big tech giants, Twitter, under its previous management, would have censored you, deplatformed you. Facebook would have done the same thing. And of course, YouTube would have also played a role in it. Tic-tac-toe, 3 in a row. You're being stepped on. You can't talk about it or question it. Plus, again, if you really want to beat Trump in the battle of ideas and public opinion, you would expect maybe our Democrat lawmakers to fight harder for progressive issues and policies. I mean, they had 8 years to really fight for it, but no, it was about controlling their narrative, controlling the party, silencing any kind of dissent within the ranks, and in turn, making further and further control. And by having that control, especially online, the American people were blinded by the fact that we were being led along. So that means that big divide of Trump impeachment. You know how people would fight each other online for social media, the big divisions, the big fights, the anger, the confusion. This was all done by institutions fabricating evidence. Fabricating evidence doesn't turn causing us to hate each other. Wake up to reality. Your institutions are there to help us keep us divided. Isn't that fantastic? All that waste founded. Now, I have my criticisms of Doge and Elon Musk. That's fine, whatever. But once again, confirmation. Confirmation on a waste of time. So never forget when the squad was cheering for this, like AOC and all the fantastic squad members, were they legitimizing fabricated evidence? False evidence? The answer is, shockingly, depressingly, yes.
CISA. Cybersecurity is an extremely important function. It shouldn't be contaminated and undermined by censorship activities.
I think it's always been known that our government has funded the change in administrations, if we can say it politely, of other governments. But isn't it borderline treason when the taxpayer when organizations entrusted with protecting our country are now undermining our own government?
Absolutely. I mean, if you're trying to do regime change, illegal, if you're weaponizing DHS, FBI.
Hold on, we're gonna rewind this, but Dabby Dabs, you bring up a very good point. And look, this is depressing to read, but this is truth. Okay, they don't cause us to hate each other. Our own stupidity allows it. Yeah, a lot of people are stupid enough to believe the politicians, the media, the institutions, and yes, even our own beliefs. Our own stupidity allows us to hate our neighbor, our families, our friends. We got to be smarter than that. Let's rewind us here. But well done, Dabby Dabs, was the comment of the day.
Governments, but isn't it borderline treason when the taxpayer when organizations entrusted with protecting our country are now undermining our own government?
Absolutely. I mean, if you're trying to do regime change, illegal, if you're weaponizing DHS, FBI, CISA, that's treasonous regime change activities redirected, that you developed abroad, that we developed abroad for regime change, directed against the American people and our representatives. I mean, it's shocking, and we still haven't dealt with it as a country.
Mr. Chairman, I see my time has expired. I'd like to introduce into the record, or ask unanimous consent to introduce into the record, an article in Newsmax, Schellenberger, USAID paid for Trump impeachment effort, dated February 6, 2025.
Without objection.
Okay, and I'm glad about that. But hold on, folks. We need to do wibbly wobbly, timey wimey kind of time travel. So Michael Schellenberger, what he testified before Congress in front of Representative Thomas Massie, first of all, 10 out of 10, outstanding stuff. But we're going to go back in time in 2019. We're going to go back in time even further than that, because Michael Schellenberger is going to explain in detail, what was going on. So let's go ahead and play this video here, and I want to share it with all of you. It's a juicy piece of information, but you need to know. So let's play it.
Whistleblower went.
Apologies. Let me rewind.
The House of Representatives impeached President Donald Trump in December 2019 after a White House whistleblower went public with evidence that Trump had abused his powers by withholding military aid to Ukraine in order to dig up dirt on his rival Joe Biden. In the complaint, the whistleblower claimed to have heard from White House staff that Trump had, on a phone call, directed Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to work with his personal attorney at the time, Rudy Giuliani, to investigate Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. The whistleblower who triggered the impeachment was a CIA analyst who was first brought into the White House by the Obama administration. Reporting by Dropsite News last year revealed that the CIA analyst had relied on reporting by a supposedly independent investigative news organization called the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, or the OCCRP, which appears to have effectively operated as an arm of the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, which President Trump has just shut down. The CIA whistleblower complaint cited a long report by OCCRP 4 times. The OCCRP report alleged that 2 Soviet-born Florida businessmen were key hidden actors behind a plan by Trump to investigate the Bidens. Those 2 businessmen connected Giuliani to 2 former Ukrainian prosecutors, according to OCCRP. The OCCRP story was crucial to the House Democrats' impeachment claim, which is that Trump dispatched Giuliani as part of a coordinated effort to pressure a foreign country to interfere in the 2020 presidential election, which is why the whistleblower cited it 4 separate times. In a 2024 documentary that the German television broadcaster NDR made about OCCRP's dependence on the US government, a USAID official confirmed that USAID approves OCCRP's annual work plan and approves of new hires of key personnel. The Dropsite journalistic collaboration revealed that OCCRP's original funding came from the Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs of the United States State Department, And it quotes a USAID official who says,
She was just nervous about being linked with law enforcement. Yeah.
But why?
Well, because sources maybe, right? If people that are going to give you information think, oh, you're just an arm of, you're just a cop, right? I mean, maybe it's a problem.
You gotta be careful of those narcs. You gotta be careful of that information. And who is spreading all this information, especially for the impeachment of Donald Trump? Why, articles like Reuters, Politico. Oh man, Rachel Maddow, that was her bread and butter. I remember the first term. Of Donald Trump. I mean, MSNBC had Rachel Maddow be the front and center, top dog, the quarterback, the hero. They constantly talked about impeachment and how Russiagate, because remember, Russiagate was also brought up in the first videos, Representative Thomas Massie. Russiagate was brought up. Oh my goodness, the walls are closing in. And it was all an illusion. Smoke and mirrors, fake. The little flea circus, all it was little mechanics. It wasn't the fleas operating the machines. It wasn't anything magical happening. It was all a trick. It was all a dream. To quote Biggie.
Or and other governments, say you're trying to get into a country and do something, and the government says, "Oh, what are you, law enforcement or not?" Right? Like, there's a need that the separation, the independence is important, because if you lose that, you lose your sense of like, your it's a value. Your reputation is incredibly important.
OCCRP does not operate like a normal investigative journalism organization in that its goals appear to include interfering in foreign political matters, including foreign elections, that are aimed at regime change. Sullivan told NDR,
"We've probably been responsible for about 5 or 6 countries changing over from one government to another government."
Oh no, don't tell that to Hillary Clinton or the Bidens or the Obamas. Don't tell that to the people who carry water for the Democrats, like the Squad or Justice Democrats or Brand New Congress or Our Revolution or DSA, because we got to stop Trump. Don't worry, folks. Yes, the coups and regime change wars are still going to happen. They're just going to be reallocated to somewhere else. But just so you know, the last 8 years, all this screaming and crying, the first term of Trump, the 4 years of Biden, all of it, one big, sad, pathetic joke. All of it lies, and people were stupid enough to believe it. Don't forget all the people that said, yes, this is truth. Yes, we got to embrace impeachment of Trump. Yes, we got to trust our politicians. Yes, we got to turn a blind eye to corruption. Yes, we got to do this, and yes to that. I like to say the Hardlands media has been consistent on this. We've been calling out these bastards since we've been around, after all. 8 years doing this.
Because and getting, and people, prime ministers indicted or thrown out.
As such, it appears that the CIA, USAID, and OCCRP were all involved in the impeachment of President Trump in ways similar to the regime change operations that all three organizations engage in abroad. The difference here is that it is highly illegal and even treasonous for CIA, USAID, and its contractors and intermediaries, often called cutouts, to interfere in U.S. politics in this way. OCCRP claims on its website that USAID's oversight of OCCRP is not what it appears to be. This represents a serious misunderstanding of a common procurement procedure, they write. This person or persons, referred to as the grant's key personnel, ensures that the money we get is spent appropriately and that the work gets done. This is not an editorial role, but a logistical one. But there is nothing in that agreement that suggests that USAID's approval of OCCRP's work plan and its senior staff are somehow unimportant to the editorial content produced by OCCRP. Indeed, USAID's Shannon McGuire emphasizes in the NDR documentary that USAID controls OCCRP through what is known as a substantial involvement clause.
What do they need to give you, and what are the things?
There's a substantial involvement clause in a cooperative agreement. So specifically for this cooperative agreement with OCCRP. It's things like reviewing and approving an annual work plan. There's key personnel. If OCCRP needs to change key personnel, for example, the chief of party, which is Drew Sullivan, then they submit a request with a resume, and we review it and say, okay, this we approve your nominee for a new chief of party or whoever it is listed in the key personnel.
Sullivan confirmed this.
She said that, and also in cooperative agreements, we know that it's common that you have a clause that USAID must sign off on key personnel. Could you walk us through that process? Like how do you do that?
Under cooperative agreements, which we don't like to take, that they have, a say on who the people are, but they can veto somebody.
But a second USAID official, Mike Henning, confirmed to the NDR filmmakers that USAID's approval is not just for logistical or administrative functions.
So it has some strings attached. A cooperative agreement has more strings attached, let's say.
You know what's great about how this lie is being exposed? We just got to say it. It's all being exposed.
All lies will be exposed.
As they should. Everything. Now, you, my audience, this is where I have to give you a full salute. All of you were smart enough to see through this, but unfortunately, a lot of people in our country were dumb enough to believe everything that was being posted and shared on CNN, MSNBC, and all the other mainstream news outlets. And where were they getting their funding and resources and information from? USAID and its proxies. I mean, and the thing is, people were dumb enough to believe it, foolish enough. Maybe, hold on, let's take it back. Not stupid, not dumb, naive. There's a lot of naive people in this country who think that our wonderful people in Washington, D.C., and our capital city actually have our best interests at heart. Yes, there are people who do believe that when they cast their vote, they just go ahead, yawn, and go back to the rest of their day. And look, that's reasonable. That's fine. I get it. Who doesn't want to just go about the rest of their day? I do. But the thing is, we have to start asking ourselves some questions. Who are these people that we elected into office? Who are these people that are then in turn being good puppets and speaking out information and quote unquote facts to their constituents? Because none of this would have been going along were it not for the Democrats constantly screaming from the rooftop about impeachment. And now we're seeing these same Democrat lawmakers panicking about what DOJ is revealing. Now, again, nothing probably will fundamentally change. I think we're seeing a lot of corruption, so wake me up when somebody goes to jail. But it's all being revealed. And I've said on the show, you could tell a lie. A lie is like building a house. Yes, it could look well constructed, but how good is the foundation? How solid are the walls? Are the windows weatherproof? Will the pipes not burst? Because a lie can stand until it finally cracks.
Then a grant.
Samantha Power, then the head of USAID, said in November 2021 that OCCRP was a major partner of the US government. Under its Strengthening Transparency and Accountability Through Investigative Reporting, or STARE program, USAID allocated $20 million to OCCRP to go from September 22nd to September 2027 to support investigative journalism in Europe and Eurasia. One of the reporters on the Giuliani story was based in Ukraine.
I mean, if you look at the Foreign Assistance Act, it says several times in there that the funds should be used to advance American foreign policy.
DropSite also found that in May 2024, the OCCRP wrote a report with the Royal United Services Institute, paid for by the UK government. The RUSI has close links with the defense and security professions, noted DropSite. One of its senior vice presidents is General David Petraeus, a former director of the CIA. Elsewhere in the documentary, Sullivan described rerouting the original grant from the State Department's INL through USAID.
What they did is they got the money and then they turned it over to USAID.
Right, USAID administered it, but the money came from the State Department's Law Enforcement and Narcotics Division.
Yes.
I'm just trying to figure out if we should say accurately that the first money for OCCRP came from the U.S. government.
That may be accurate.
That's right. Now, listen here, folks. Listen. I just want to point out something else here, too. Now that it's all said and done, we could talk about this. We could speak about it. But how much further are we going to find out? Like, there is so much more. And there's a lot of accountability. There's a lot of people that must be held accountable for them continuing on these pointless, wasteful lies. Russiagate, the impeachment of Trump, and all these other pieces of information. What other things will be revealed? Now, Doge doing this, there's a lot of things that Doge is doing. You could call into question whether it's correct or not. But it is revealing a lie. And for all the people who are upset about Doge, okay, well, if you hate it so much, if you despise it so much, why is it now, above all else, that you are panicking that certain corrupt institutions and things that were done under nefarious late at night, why are you upset that they stopped? Democrats, you're supposed to be the quote unquote good guys. I mean, that's how you promoted yourself the past 8 years, or tried to put on that mask of being the self-righteous heroes. But now USAID is being caught red-handed. People are talking about it. It's out there for the whole world to see that you're giving out false stories, fake information. And this says a lot about overall how Americans are consuming information, and in turn, how that information is distributed. We have said on the show that the same people who own both parties, Democrats and Republicans, are the same people who control our media. It's all about a narrative and control. And what comes next down the road, because you know what? Oh, wait. Just a few weeks ago, we did a story about one Democrat politician who opened up that Coca-Cola Classic line of thinking about filing articles of impeachment towards Donald Trump. They haven't learned anything, and sadly, there are people who will fall for it hook, line, and sinker, and the truth can be hanging in front of you. Remember that scene from The Dark Knight, 2008? Great film, filmed here in Chicago. That scene where the mayor's talking to Harvey Dent, saying, hey, you better get ready. Everyone's going to be coming after you. And the truth, well, the dead body of the fake Batman hits the wall. People are blind to it and shocked by it. They don't know how to respond to it. The truth is hanging before us. So when do we take action? When do we call out these people who lied to us for the past 8 years? I'm waiting. Wake me up if somebody goes to jail.